You're live. You can go ahead.
Okay, all the best, Jaishna and Ashwin.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi everyone. Today is the second session of Python class. Okay, hope you enjoyed the session, last session. And okay, you can continue, Jaishna and Ashwin.
Okay, so we're doing Python session 2. Wait.
All right. So remember how last session we had a little bit of homework? So right now I would like 2 volunteers to share their screen to the class and show off like what they did for the homework. Any volunteers that want to share their homework to the class? No volunteers.
I can share.
Yeah,
Great.
okay.
So
I'll stop share.
Yep, and share your screen.
Okay, give me a second.
I got you.
And also this person called Rajita wants to share. He can share next, I think. Yeah. In the chat, she said she wants.
Tell me if you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
your screen.
I can see him.
Can you just walk us through what you did?
Yeah.
So basically, these are both inputs, the top 2 lines, and whatever you input in the first 2 questions, the first one will be considered name_1, the variable, and whatever you put in the second one will be considered name_2. Next, what it does is it prints hi, and then your first and last name, and nice to meet you. And then it also prints my name is blah, blah, blah.
Why?
Very nice.
Oh,
I like it. I like the extra touch.
yeah. So can you run it?
All right, you can stop sharing your screen now. Good job.
No, he can run it, right? Okay.
Yeah, it works. All right.
Okay. Okay.
All right, the next person I think is Rajita. If you want to share.
Want to share? Come on.
Is Rajita on? Can you share your screen or?
Yeah.
You can type in chat if you don't want to speak or anything.
Or if anyone else wants to share.
Oh, you have trouble sharing screen. It's okay then. If you don't, if you can't, then it's all right. We'll just find someone else, right?
Anyone else want to share?
Anyone else want to share? Yeah.
Just waiting for them.
Oh wait,
Did someone put their code on chat?
Yeah.
Wait, Krishna, can you
copy
copy this and put it on repo?
Can someone, whoever's talking, can you mute yourself?
Yeah. If you're not asking questions, can you please mute your chat? It's very distracting to the other participants.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, since they're having trouble with their microphone, I'll just go through this. How about that, huh? So it looks like they're asking their input to the user. They're saying, "Hi, what's your first name?" And then, storing that in a variable called first name. And then they're asking their last name and storing that in a variable called last name. And then they're just printing out, well, hi, space, and then first name, and then with a space and then the last name. And then they're just putting a nice to meet you. Very nice. This code looks very efficient. So good job, Rajita. All right.
We just needed to add the space in between the question mark and this over here. You add that, and then if you run it, or like you can put the colon here, right? And then now if you run it, you won't have this over here, like as you can see, like it's just interfering right there. If you run it now, it should. So yeah, look, there's like a space in between.
This is a little way to make everything look nicer, right? All right.
Okay, now
Um,
let's go through the go.
So before, I'm just gonna
Can
put
I
in like
share?
exactly what.
Do you want to? We already had.
We are running out of time, so we're just gonna. If you
Yeah.
want to share, that's very nice, but we're running out of time a little, so
Okay,
we're just gonna.
that's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Before we go, I'm just gonna put in mine
Well,
in
yeah,
case
that-
anyone else is
yeah,
still
like
confused, and
this.
I'll go over it a little. All right. So as we saw in the first couple examples, the first two examples, we first have a variable. I'm just gonna name it first name, and then have it equal to like an input that you're gonna ask the user. So the question is obviously, what is your first name, right? And then we have another variable called last name, and then same thing. It's just input. Input. What is your last name? Right, and then the final print statement, we just have to just put them together, right? So nice to meet you. Oops, nice to meet you. Space, and then add your first name, the user's first name, sorry, not your first name, and then a space, and then a space, and then add in the user's last name. Fairly simple, right? And if we run this code, it's gonna put in, okay, what's your first name, Ashwin? What's your last name, Kumaran? And then it says, nice to meet you, Ashwin Kumar, right? Nice to meet you. Oops, nice to meet you. Any questions on how the homework works, or any questions? Yeah. First name.
Yeah, mute it here.
Name and then a space.
Can you mute yourself, whoever is
And the user's last name.
I can hear my.
Right. And if you run this code. Oh, is it feedbacking or something?
Is anyone speaking?
And then it says nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Let's just move on. Okay.
Any questions?
Move on. Ashwin.
All right, we'll just go to the session now. I think there's a bit of audio.
Okay, so first in the session, we're going to be learning comparisons and Booleans. Comparison or a comparison operator is going to be like greater than sign or the equal. Can someone please mute themselves, please? Thank you. Okay, so a comparison operator would be like the greater than sign, the equal to sign, the less than sign. Like over here, 10 is greater than 9, 9 is less than 12. 10 is equal to 10, something like that, right? So you can put comparisons in Python as well. And Booleans, as I said in the last session, we're gonna go over Booleans a lot this session. So a Boolean is a data type that prints out true or false to whatever you print out in the line of code. So if you were to ask Python, is like 10 greater than 9, it's gonna print out true. So that would be a Boolean. So I can show you in the example here. So let's print 10 is greater than 9. We print this out, it's gonna say true. Because over here, it's basically, you already have the answer to your question. Like it's not, you're not asking them what is greater than 9, right? Or anything like that. You're just saying 10 is greater than 9. You're basically asking if it's true or false. Python. We can also do other stuff. We can do 9 less than 12. Let's do is 9 less than 5. This is going to print out false because 9 is greater than 5, of course. So that's going to print out false. Let's try print 3 plus 2 equals 5. So why we have two equal signs here? Well, the first reason is if you have one equal sign is used for variables. So wait, I'll zoom in. Okay. I'll zoom in. Okay, so one equal sign is used for variables. So variable. So a variable would be set to something with one equal sign, right? But with two equal signs, basically saying that something is equal to something else. So two equal signs would be used for mathematical operations. So Python, just because Python doesn't want to get confused with two, right? That's why it has one equal sign for variables and stuff, and the two equal signs for mathematical operations. Let's continue here. So 3 plus 2 equals 5, but 2, right? You can also do this with other things. Print 2 divided by 4, right? Equals. You have to put 2 equals, right? Have that habit of just doing that. 0.5. So 2 divided by 4 is equal to 0.5. That is true. What if we put print 5 times 8 equals 2? Well, that would print false because 5 times 8 is actually 40, not 2, right? So now that is what a comparison statement would be. They can be used as Booleans, right? All these things. So if you set something equal to something like this, right? It's basically asking Python, is this right or wrong? It's basically checking your answers, right? So that is it for this slide right now.
Any questions on Booleans and comparison statements?
Any questions?
You can speak or you can type it in chat, either way.
No.
Everyone good on
I think
Boolean and comparison statements?
yes. Okay.
All right. Nice.
Comparison.
All right. Next thing we're going to be learning are called if statements. And before we understand what an if statement is, we need to understand what kind of coding we've been doing so far. So I'm going to switch to REPL right here real quick, right? The kind of coding we've been doing so far is the kind of coding that just goes through and then does these code one by one. So it goes through line 1 and does this code, and goes to line 2 and does this code, and then so on and so forth until it finishes the program, right? That's the kind of code we've been doing. An if statement, well, it's not, an if statement can well, let me explain what an if statement is. An if statement is basically like a piece of code that does or does not run depending on certain circumstances. Like it can run or it doesn't have to run depending on like certain user inputs, right? And it won't always go in order. Sometimes it can go out of order. So I'm just gonna show you an example of what that looks like here real quick. I'm just gonna delete this right here. And I'm gonna, okay, so the syntax for writing an if statement. So first you type in the word if, obviously, and then put in little parentheses in there. And inside this parentheses, you're gonna have your condition. And this condition has to be equal to a Boolean statement. It has to be either true or false. If this condition equals true, then the code runs. If the condition equals false, then the code doesn't run, right? And the code inside, how do we actually make the code? So after the condition, you have to write your condition, you put a little colon. Everyone see this colon right here? You put in this colon and then you press enter. Notice how Python automatically adds in a little indent right here. You guys know, you see that indent right there? That's because any code we're going to write from now on is going to be inside this if statement. So you can just have your code right here, right? And Python automatically adds in this indent, but on the off chance like it doesn't, all you have to do is press tab and it'll tab inside the if statement, right? So this is basically the syntax. You have your if, and then you have your condition, colon, indent, and then your code. I'm going to use this syntax and I'm going to show you a little example, right? Example right here. So I'm going to explain the example first. So you know how if you're in the US, you have to be above the age of 18 to vote, right? So if you're above the age of 18, you can vote. If you're below the age of 18, you can't vote, right? So we're going to make a program that first asks the user their age and then determines whether they're able to vote or unable to vote, right? So to do that, what do we need to do? We first need to make a variable, right, that stores the user's age. So age, and then obviously you ask the user what's their age, right? So what is your age? And remember, when you're asking the user for a number, an integer, you need to put the words int around the entire statement. You guys remember that from session 1, where if you're asking the user for a number, you have to have an int next to it. Everyone remember that? right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. So now we have the user's age, right? And I'm going to have an if statement right here. So if, parentheses, and inside this parentheses, I'm going to say if the user's age is greater than 18, if the user's age is greater than 18, colon, and then enter. If the user's age is greater than 18, then we print you can vote in the US. All right. And we're going to have another if statement, right? So we're going to have another if statement here. And if, and then parentheses, if the user's age is less than 18, if it's less than 18, right? Then you print out, since it's less than 18, they can't vote. So you print out you cannot vote in the US, right? Let's break this code down, right?
Yes.
So first it asks the user for their age and it stores it in a variable called age. And then it goes through here, okay. If the user's age is greater than 18, then Python prints out you can vote in the US. If the user's age is less than 18, Python prints out you cannot vote in the US, right? And when you're running this code, only one of these print statements would actually occur, right? Because the user's age is either less than 18 or greater than 18, right? So I'm going to run this code right here. I'm going to expand this output string a little. So and that's what's your age? Let's say I'm putting a 15, right? And I press enter and it says you cannot vote in the US, right? And that makes sense because 15 is less than 18. And that's why it says you cannot vote in the US. Okay? I'm gonna run this code again. And this time I'll put in 20. And after I press enter, it says you can vote in the US. Why? Because 20 is greater than 18. So you guys get that? Depending on what the user puts in here, you can make the program say you can vote in the US or you cannot vote in the US. It's really interesting like that, right? That's basically the basics of if statements. We'll get into more complex stuff later in this session, right? Any questions on how if statements work? Any comments? Anything? Anything at all? Just ask.
Yeah.
Looks like we're good. All right. Move on to the next slide.
Ashwin,
Yes.
don't you want to show how you do it with words? The statements with words.
That's for the
Oh, yeah.
next.
Oh yeah. So next we're going to be doing else statements, right? So an else statement is basically they go with if statements, right? And they show an alternative option for whatever you are trying to prove, right? So it makes the user choose between two things. So I'll show you here in Python. So basically, Ashwin has two if statements here. Instead of having two if statements, we can have one if statement here. Instead of an if statement here, we can have an else. So an else statement does not need any condition. So this basically means, okay, so you ask the user, what is your age, right? And then over here, the code is, if the age is greater than 18, then print you can vote in the US. Or else, print out you cannot vote in the US. So if it's greater than 18, then you can vote in the US. Or anything else, if it's any other number, you cannot vote in the US. So it makes it a little simpler. Like it makes your code a little simpler using the else statement, right? You run this right here. If you say your age is 2 years old, you can say it's going to say you cannot vote in the US. That's because the else statement just makes it way easier, right? No conditions, no nothing. And it basically means that if the age is below 18 or equal to 18, it cannot, you cannot vote, right? That's basically what is the age. So if your age is still 18, this code says that you cannot vote. So let's try 18, okay? 18, if you print out 18, right? It's gonna say you cannot vote because 18 is not greater than or less than 18. It is 18, right? So basically anything else other than your age being greater than 18 will result in you not being able to vote, right? The user not being able to vote, okay? Let's go next slide. Any questions for that? Questions? Okay.
All right. Next, we're going to be learning about elif statements. And from the word itself, you can see that the word elif is just a combination of the word else and the word if, right? And that's what it is. It's like Jason explained in the previous slide, it's an alternative option for your if statement. But now for an elif statement, you can add a condition. Remember, in an else statement, you cannot add a condition. Well, in an elif statement, you can add a condition. And I'm going to show you how this works in our REPL. All right. So some people might have the question, what if you're exactly 18, right? And Jason said right here that even if you put in your age as 18, it still prints out you cannot vote in the US. But if you're 18, you can vote in the US. So what do? Right? So right in between this if statement and else statement right here, I'm going to add an elif statement. So the syntax for an elif statement is the same thing as an if statement, but instead of writing if, you write an elif, E-L-I-F, elif, right? And then you put parentheses, right? And here you can put in your condition. So we want to say, if the user's age is equal to 18, if it's exactly equal to 18, and remember, when you're doing a Boolean statement, you have to have 2 equal signs, because 1 equal sign is for a variable, 2 equal signs is for a Boolean statement. So 2 equal signs, if our user's age is equal to exactly 18, colon, and then enter, we want Python to print out, what do you want to print out? Let's say, congratulations. Oh, I spelled congratulations wrong. Congratulations. You can now vote in the US. Right? I'm going to leave little spaces here to make it easier to understand. So first, we ask the user for their age, right? This if statement right here checks if the user's age is above 18. And if it is, they say it says you can vote in the US. This elif statement checks to see if the user's age is equal to 18. And if it is, it prints out, congratulations, you can now vote in the US. If it's anything else, so in this case, anything else just means if your age is less than 18, right? You print out you cannot vote in the US, right? These are 3 different routes that the program can take depending on what the user puts in, right? And you can have a bunch more elif statements. I'm just putting in one here for the sake of simplicity, but you can put in like 1,000, right? There's no limit to how many elif statements you can have. You can have as many elif statements as you want, right? And now if I press run right here, and I'm going to go through a bunch of different examples. So what's your age? Let's say I'm 60, right? And I put in I'm 60, and the program says you can vote in the US, right? Run this program again and say, what is your age? So I'm gonna say 4, right? And it says you cannot vote in the US. Run this program again, and I'm going to say 18. I'm exactly 18, and it says, congratulations, you can now vote in the US. So you see how if statements basically make the code like split into 3 different routes, right? And it can take either any of these routes depending on what the user actually puts in. Any questions on if statements, elif statements, anything? Any questions? Any questions?
Why would you use the elif if you can just put age greater than 17? Because then that would include 18 but not include 17.
If age is greater than 17, less than 18?
Yeah,
well,
you put that in the if, then you won't need an elif.
Well, obviously, yeah, I mean, like you're thinking ahead here, you can make this code a lot simpler by just doing that. But I'm just here to show you that you can have elif statements and else statements. Yeah, I can just put in if age is less than 17, you can say you can't vote in the US. And if anything else, I can say you can vote in the US. Obviously, I can do that. But just to show you guys an example of what the elif statement looks like, I'm just doing this. I'm sorry, I know it's like a bad example. I'm just saying this to tell you guys that, yeah, an elif statement is there. You can use this like this, right? You got that? All right, any other questions before? All right, before we move on to the next slide, I'm going to show you guys one more example because some people were confused on this example. I'm going to tell you one more example on how you can use if, elif, and else statements, right? So I'm just going to delete this. Oops, I'm just going to delete this code right here. Delete this. And I'm gonna start by explaining the example. So you know how if you want to like eat in like a fancy restaurant, before you have to eat, you have to like call them and you actually have to say like, I'm coming in, can you save a table for me? And you have to tell them your name, and then they write down your name. It's like, okay, we have a table for you, and you have to come in 30 minutes, right? That's basically the kind of example we're going to do. So in Python, we're going to ask the user their name, and then if their name has a table in that restaurant, we're going to be like, okay, your table is over here. And if their name is not in the restaurant, you just say, I'm sorry, we don't have your name here, right? That's the kind of program we're going to make. The first, what you have to do, we have to make a variable called name, which would store the user's name. So name is just equal to input, what is your name, right? Simple. What is your name? And this asks the user their name, right? And we're going to have two different tables, right? So table one, I'm just going to name a variable called table one, and I'm going to set it equal to my name, right? Ashwin. So I have a table in this restaurant called table one, and it's set under the name Ashwin, right? There's another table called table two, right? And this table is going to be under the name Jaishnav, right? So table two, there's a table called table two, and it's under the name of Jaishnav. And there's a table called table one, and it's under the name of Ashwin, right? And now we want to check, okay, if the name is equal to table one, then we print out welcome Ashwin, right? If the name is equal to table two, we print out welcome Jaishnav, right? And if the name is anything else, we print out, sorry, we don't have your name in this restaurant, right? That's what we're going to do. So make an if statement here. If, parentheses, the user's name, so name is equal to double equal sign for Boolean, table one, right? Remember table one is Ashwin, right? So this is basically asking if our user's name is equal to Ashwin, colon, then we print out, let's just print out welcome to our restaurant, Mr. Ashwin, right? And now we're going to have an elif statement right here. So we're going to say elif, and I'm going to say if name is equal to table two, right? And table two in our case is Jaishnav. So if the user's name is equal to Jaishnav, then colon enter, and then we print out welcome to our restaurant, Mr. Jaishnav, right? And then at the end, we're going to have an else statement, right? So this basically says if it's not Ashwin and it's not Jaishnav, what do you do, right? So now in that case, we print out, sorry, we do not have that name in our restaurant, right? So what this program does is it first asks the user their name. And then it says, okay, we have two tables. One table is named Ashwin and one table is named Jaishnav, right? And then it goes through here, okay, if the user's name is equal to Ashwin, which is table one, this example, if the user's name is equal to Ashwin, we say, welcome to our restaurant, Mr. Ashwin. If our user's name is equal to Jaishnav, which is table two, so if our user's name is equal to Jaishnav, then we print out, welcome to our restaurant, Mr. Jaishnav, right? And it's anything else. If it's anything else other than Ashwin or Jaishnav, we print out, sorry, we do not have that name in our restaurant, right? I'm going to run this code right here. Run this here, and you can see in the output screen, it asks, what is your name? Put in my name first, which is Ashwin. And I'm going to press enter, and it says, welcome to our restaurant, Mr. Ashwin, which is what we want to send out because user's name Ashwin is definitely equal to table one, which is also Ashwin, right? I'm going to run this program again. And this time I'm going to put in Jaishnav, right? And I press enter here, and it says, welcome to our restaurant, Mr. Jaishnav, because the user's name Jaishnav is definitely equal to our table two, which is also Jaishnav, right? I'm going to run this again, and I'm going to put it, I don't know, I'll put in like hello or something, right? Now, obviously, hello is not a name in our restaurant. So now if I press enter, it's going to say, sorry, we do not have that name in our restaurant, right? Run this one more time, and I'm going to put in my name, but I'm not going to put in a capital A, right? So it's going to be all lowercase letters, Ashwin, right? Now if I run this, it's still going to say, sorry, we do not have that name in our restaurant, because Ashwin with all lowercase letters is not equal to Ashwin with a capital A, right? Remember how I said Python, in session 1, I said Python is case sensitive, meaning that every single letter has to match up, or else Python will give you an error. in your code, right? So that's why it says, sorry, we don't have the name in our restaurant, because Ashwin with all lowercase letters is not the same as Ashwin with a capital A. All right? Everyone got that? Any questions on how this program works? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
So, what sorry, wait 1 second. Instead of
Yeah.
making something that says sorry, we don't have your name in our restaurant, why would you not make a third variable like table 3 and make it an input variable and then make the answer for the else that input?
No, if it's not Ashwin or Jaishnav, then we ask the user their name again.
Yeah, no. So if it's not Ashwin or Jaishnav, there'd be a third variable, table 2 equals, and then input, what's your name, and then that table 3 variable, you would be like, else print, welcome to our restaurant, and then the table 3 variable. That way you could get any name inside your restaurant.
That is true, right? If you do put in like a table 3 here and be like else,
And
we
you
can
made an
type in like input inside the else statement. If you have like, I don't know, table 3 equals like what is it, input, what is your name?
Yeah. Or
right? And then you can just print out
yeah,
welcome to our restaurant, table 3, right?
yeah, that's what I was. Or
Yeah,
actually,
this works.
wouldn't there be an easier way to do that? You know, at the top where you have the table 1 and table 2 variable, if you made a table 3 under that and made the input there, then you could just print, instead of asking what's your name twice, it would just.
That's also true. We're going to be covering like more of the, I think you're talking about like, what if we can just loop it so we can just make it ask your name whenever, like if it's not equal to Ashwin or Jaishnav, we just like add that name to the thing, right? Is that
Yeah, I know. Yeah, why not do that?
We will cover that in like another session, let's say, because that's going into more like looping and everything. We're going to be covering that in the next session. So I'll definitely come back to your question next session, right? You're basically asking like, why do we have to ask the user's name 2 times? Can we just ask them once? And then if their name is not in the table, we just add in their name to another table. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, or you could like
we
put the
will
name
cover
into
that because that's going into like another data type that we haven't talked about yet. So I'll definitely cover that next example. Nice question.
Or you could put it into a text document or something like that.
Yeah, of course, yeah. We'll cover that. I'll come back to your question like maybe next session or something. Nice question though. Thanks for asking it.
Yeah.
Any other questions other than that? All right. Nice. We'll move on to the next slide.
Okay, so our next slide is going to be about logical operators. So there are 3 logical operators. The first one, the AND. Next one is NOT. NOT is basically an exclamation mark with an equal sign. And there's another one called OR. So I'll be going over all this, right? They can be used inside if statements with Booleans, right? So the AND operator is used to combine 2 Booleans together, like this and that, right? That's what AND means, right? And then the NOT operator is used to dismiss Boolean statements. Then the OR operator is to choose between one or another, right? Boolean statement. So I'll show you guys in Rumble. Like over here, we have an else. What is your name here, right? Instead of this, let's go back to the original thing, right? What do we have? We had print. We do not have a table serve or right? Sorry, we do not have a table, right? Sorry, we do not have a table reserved, right? Okay, so over here, I know how people are going to say else is much simpler to do this, right? But I'm just going to show you guys how the not operator and the or operator works here, okay? So elif, you guys know how elif is a combination of else and if, right? Let's use the elif statement here. Parentheses, and then you have, so what, instead of having the else, we can say if name is not equal to, so not equal to the sign you see there, exclamation mark with the equal sign, basically means not equal to table 1, or the name is not equal to table 2, then you print out this right here. So this basically does exactly what the else statement does. So basically, if the name is not Ashwin or Jaishnav, it prints this out. The name is not equal to table 1, or the name is not equal to table 2, it prints out, sorry, we do not have a table reserved for you, right? So it does exactly what the else statement does. So let's say my name is Ganesh, I don't know. Then sorry, we do not have a table reserved for you. Say John. No, we do not have a table reserved for you. See? So it does exactly what the else statement does, but I just showed you guys, I just show you the else statement. This basically shows you how you can use multiple elif statements and if statements together, right? You can use an if statement in the beginning and then multiple elif statements, right? So let's see here. Let's put in my name then. Does anyone know why it says, sorry, we do not have a table reserved for you? Anyone?
The A is not capital.
Yeah, correct. So I just put that error in so that I can show you guys again. Python is case sensitive. That is the most important thing that you should know. Because if you just do something wrong, like on accident like that, then and you see an error, you got to know that, okay, it might be because we typed it in wrong, right? First, you got to think like that. And if that's not the case, then there's something wrong, right? Okay, now I'm going to show you how the AND operator works. Right now, we already were, I already showed you guys how the not operator here, I used two not operators. So if the name is not equal to this or that, right? I showed you guys like that. Any questions? You have a question?
If you have a question, you can ask you.
Yeah, this is not a question, but in order to make it not case sensitive, could you not just put dot lower with the
Yes,
two?
you can.
Yeah.
Dot lower is not, I mean, yeah, obviously you can put a dot lower at the end of the input, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure majority of people here don't know what a dot lower is. So I'm not going to go into explaining it. But if you know what dot lower is, obviously, yes, you can put it. We're just trying to drive the point that your letters in your user input has to be the same as your whatever you type in your program, right? That's what we're trying to prove.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Okay.
This is just the basics, right? We're just teaching the basics here. The dot lower and all those type of things like that, right? You can go over that in your own once we teach the basics, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to show you guys how the AND operator works here. Let's have a code that first asks the user for 3 numbers, okay? First number, second number, and then third number. And then after that, we're going to tell the user if all of the numbers are greater than 10, or if one or more of the numbers are not greater than 10, okay? So let's make a variable, okay? Let's call it number 1, okay? First number. Okay, so over here, we're putting int and then the input, because we're gonna ask them for a number, right? And then for quotations, because it's gonna be a string, the question is gonna be a string. Pick your first number. Okay, I'm gonna tell the user to pick the first number. So I'm gonna do this 3 times. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna paste this 2 more times. And then I'm gonna change the variable names here, 2 and 3. That's because, you know, we're asking them 3 questions and we're not asking them their first number 3 times. Second number and third number. So over here, we're asking the user pick 3 numbers, right? After this, we're gonna have an if statement here. So if number one is greater than 10, and so I'm gonna have an and statement here. I'm gonna copy this. And then I'm gonna have another and here. I'll show you guys in a minute. Wait. 3 there. Let's have 2 here. So basically what this if statement is if number 1 is greater than 10 and number 2 is greater than 10, and number 3 is greater than 10, then we are going to print out all of your numbers are greater than 10. Okay, so basically we're saying if number 1, the first number, second number, and third number, if all of them are equal to 10, I'm sorry, greater than 10, then we're going to say all your numbers are greater than 10. Then of course we need an else statement, right? Does anyone see what I'm doing wrong already here? Nobody
You
sees
can
it?
leave a space.
No, the thing is, right, I left an indent here. You shouldn't do that, because an else statement is a statement that contains code by itself, right? It's like an if statement, right? Contains code. So basically the if statement over here has this code inside it. That's why this is indented here. If I have an indent here, that basically means that this if statement holds this else statement. Like this else statement's inside the if statement, right? That's not how we're supposed to do it in this code, right? So over here we're gonna print out not all of your numbers are greater than 10, right? So what this code does, you ask the user the 3 numbers, right? And then if all 3 numbers are greater than 10 over here, so this and this and this, if all of them are greater than 10, then you print out all of the numbers are greater than 10. Or else, not all of the numbers are greater than 10. So even if one of the numbers are equal to 10, or if any of the numbers are less than 10, it should print out not all of your numbers are greater than 10. So let's run this here. Put the first number as 20. Okay. First number is 20. Let's do second number is 30. Fourth number is 15. Okay. If we do this, it says all of your numbers are greater than 10, right? Let's run this again. I have a 5 here, a 10 here, and then a 50 here. Not all of your numbers are greater than 10. So as you can see here, 2 of the numbers over here are not greater than 10. So that's why it's saying not all of the numbers are greater than 10. So what if you use an or here instead of an and? What is it going to do? An or here and an or here. Well, what this does is, if we run this here, I can show you what this does. So if we put a 5 here, and then a 6, and then 11, right? Basically what we're telling it to do is, over here we're telling it to check if either one of these are true, then print out this. So if all of them are false, then you don't print out this and you go to this, right? But if any of them are true, then you got to print out this. So if we run this, right, it says all of your numbers are greater than 10. Is that true? No. This is 5, this is 6, that's not greater than 10, right? So if we use the or statement here, it picks any one of these. So if this one is true, then it just says all numbers are greater than 10. Because it chooses between one of these options, right? If all of them are false, then it's going to go to this. But if any one of these are right, then it's going to say this. That's why we don't want to use the or in this situation. Instead of that, we're using the and statement here. Okay. You have the and statement here. And now we run it as usual. It's going to print out. So we do 20, 30, 25. To print out all of your numbers are greater than 10. So any questions about this? Any questions? No?
Before if there's no questions, before we move on to the next slide, I just want to point out something right here. So what if you want to say like, okay, I want to say if number 1 and number 2 and number 3, if they're greater than or equal to 10, I wanted to print out all of your numbers are greater than or equal to 10. How do you say, what's the comparison symbol for greater than or equal to? Well, that's very simple. You just put in an equal sign after the symbol here. So I just put an equal sign after the symbol. This tells Python to check that, okay, I want to check if number 1 is greater than or equal to 10, right? And this is basically the syntax you use. Everyone can see this, right? The less than, and then after the less than you put an equal sign, and this is the symbol you use if you want to tell Python if the thing you're checking is greater than or equal to. What if you want to say if number 1 is less than or equal to 10? Same principle, you just put in the less than sign. Same principle, you just put in the less than sign and then an equal to sign after that, right? And this tells Python that, okay, if number 1 is less than or equal to 10 and number 2 is less than or equal to 10, then you print out this statement, right? I just wanted to show that if any of you were wondering what would we do if you want to check if it's less than or equal to a particular number, right? That's all I wanted to say. Any questions on that?
Let's run this here. We can show them.
Yeah, run this and we'll see.
So let's put 10 for all. I know. Let's put 25 for them. How about that? It says all of your. No, actually, no. Yeah. No. Yeah. All of your numbers are greater than or equal to 10. So yeah. So 10 over here, 10 over here. They're both equal to 10, right? And then this one's greater than 10, right? So that's why this works over here. Even if we put. Wait. What happened?
You forgot the symbol.
You took out something. You took this out. Why you got it? It's fine. Okay, so now, yeah, so if you run this, it works, right? Put everything greater than 10, it's going to say all your numbers are greater than or equal to 10. Put 10 for everything. It's going to say that as well. If you put anything below 10, then it's not. So no questions, right?
No.
All right. So the next thing we're going to be learning is something called rounding. So I'm pretty sure all of you from school, I'm pretty sure you learned what rounding is. Can anyone please tell me if you don't know what rounding is? Like rounding a decimal number, does anyone not know what that is? All right, good. So I'm pretty sure we all know what rounding is. And there's actually a way to round numbers in Python. And that's by using the round function. And I'm going to show you how this round function works in REPL. All right. So let's go to REPL. Just now. All right. And now I'm just gonna do this code right here. Yeah, thanks. And let's say we have a variable and set it equal to a big decimal, right? I say 3.4 or something. I don't really know. There's a big number, right? It's a big decimal number. And what if you want, like, I don't know, I just want the first 2 decimals. That's it. I only want to display this much. I only want to display the first 3 numbers. What do I do? Well, then you can tell Python, okay, I want to round this big number in the first 2 decimal points. So how do you do that? You type in the round function. So all you have to do is type in round and then parentheses. And inside this parentheses, the round function takes in 2 numbers. And both of the numbers are separated by a comma. Right? The first number is the number you want to round. And in our case, the number we want to round is this big decimal number here, which is x. So I'm just going to say x. And then comma, and then the next number is the amount of decimal places we want to round it to. So in our example, we want to round to the first 2 decimal places, right? In that case, we just type in the word 2. Remember that this number it does not include the number before the decimal point. This only includes numbers after the decimal point. So this only references the second number after the decimal point, which in our case is a 6, right? And now if you run this, first of all, if you run this code right now, if you run this code right now, nothing prints out, nothing happens because we haven't actually printed this out. We've only rounded the number. We have to actually print this out. So what we do, we just add in a print around the round. And what this does, it prints the rounded number, right? We just put it around the print statement. And now if we run this, it says 3.47, right? Because the second decimal point is 6, and the number after that is 8. And 8 is obviously equal to or greater than 5. And that's why Python rounds up. Let's say we have the number next to 6, let's say it's like 3, right? In this example, Python should actually just make the number the same, right? Because 3 is obviously less than 5. So now if we print this out, it should say 3.46, which it does. because the number after 6 is less than 5, right? And before we end this off, I'm just gonna give you another example here. What if we don't have this number, right? Python does round this number as well, but it rounds it to the next whole number. It rounds it to the next number, right? So if it's 3, it rounds it to either 3 or 4, right? Because this is basically the same thing as saying, I don't know, 0, right? It's the same thing as putting a 0 here. If you put in like a 3 here, it means the third decimal point. If you put in like a 7 here, it means the 7th decimal point. But if you put in a 0 here, it means the number before the decimal. That's what this means. So instead of putting a 0, we don't actually have to put anything, right? And then now what this does, so it looks at the number before the decimal point and it rounds that. So what's the number after 3? It's 4, and 4 is less than 5. So if I round this and I print this out right now, it should just say 3, and it does. Because obviously 4 is less than 5, and that's how rounding works, right? Let's say we have this set to a number greater than 5, let's say like a 9 or something, right? So now it's 3.9, right? Which now if you round this number, it should go up to 4, because that's rounding. We have to round up. So now if I run this program right here, it says 4, right? And this is just a little side bit on how rounding works, just in case you were wondering how to round numbers, because rounding numbers is very useful in mathematics, right? Any questions on how the round function works, or any questions about this code in general? No questions, no questions.
Pretty good.
All right, great. Move on.
Okay, so that was it for this session. So we learned, oh wait, no, someone's in the chat. Someone said something in the chat.
Oh, oops.
I just said no questions.
Oh,
Okay. Well, that was it for today's session. We learned comparisons and Booleans. We learned if statements, elif statements, else statements. We learned logical operators and not and or, those logical operators. And also we learned rounding. So that was it for this session. Make sure to attend next session, session 3, Python, right? And this week's homework is to make a program that asks the user some questions and then use it to determine if they are eligible to run for president. So the questions you got to ask the user are, first, is their age above 35? So first you got to ask them their age. They got to tell you their age, right? And then you got to ask them if they were born in the US, like a yes or no question, right? And then you got to ask them if they have been in the US for more than 14 years. Okay? So you got to ask them all 3 of those questions. And then depending on whatever they say, you should print out, yes, you are eligible to run for president, or you are not eligible to run for president. Remember the 3 questions. What is your age? Were you born in the US, yes or no? And have you been a citizen in the US for more than 14 years? Those are the 3 questions that you have to ask the user. Then using that, so Ashwin, you ready to show them the output?
yeah. Yep.
So Ashwin will now show the output of how the code should look like when you run it.
Zoom this in. All right. So remember our 3 questions. What's your age? Were you born in the US? And whether you've been here for more than 14 years, right? So I'm gonna put in some numbers here. So what is your age? I'm gonna say 15. And were you born in the US? Yes or no? I'm gonna type in yes. Well, actually, I'm gonna type in no. Right? I'm gonna type in no. And how years of residency? I'm gonna say 6, right? And now if I run this, it's gonna say you are not eligible to run for president. Because remember our criteria, it has you have to be above or equal to the age of 35, you have to be born in the US, and you have to be equal to or greater than 14 years of residency, right? So on this program again, and now let's put in, I'll put in, I don't know, 40, and yes, I was born in the US, and I've been here for 20 years, right? Now if I run this, it says you are eligible to run for president, because all of this is what we want. Like, yes, 40 is above 35, and yes, they were born in the US, and yes, 20 is above 14. So that's how this works, right? Another example I'm going to show you, I'm going to run this again. And what if I put in 35, yes, and 14, right? This should still print out you are eligible to run for president, because our criteria was if your age is equal to or greater than 35, and were you here for 14 or more years. So you have to be, so remember those equal to or greater than or equal to or less than or equal to operators I taught you about? So you can use that in this code, right? One more thing. Let's say you type in your age as 40, and yes, you were born in the US, but you've only been here for, let's say, 5 years, this should still print out you are not eligible to run for president, because we want all of these to be true. So we want our age to be greater than 35, and we want them to be born in the US, and we want them to be above 14 years. They have to live here for above 14 years. So remember to use your logical operators to make a code that basically says all of these has to be true if your program has to print out you are eligible to run for president. All right. Any
So
questions about the? Oh, sorry.
yeah. Does anyone know what logical operator would be really useful for making sure that all of them have to meet the criteria? Like they have to meet, the user has to meet every single one of the criteria. Does anyone know what operator would be most useful?
Well,
Anyone?
spoiler, it's and. All right.
Yes.
I'm
And
sorry. I'm sorry, but you have to use the and
also
operator.
not.
Just a little hint here on what you have to do. You have to use the and operator to make sure that all of these have to be true. So remember the and operator, you can use that. And if you don't, just look up this video on YouTube, obviously. And
Also the not operator for to say like they're not, right? Okay, so yeah, that's it.
any questions on the homework? Any questions on anything in general?
Yeah.
Anything? You're good?
No.
Oh, wait, sorry.
So are you
good.
done?
Yeah.
Okay.
I should stop.
All right, nice. No questions. Well, that's our session for today. Make sure to attend our next session. Make sure to check us out on YouTube or anything. Yeah, good job.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Hello.
Bye.
Good job, guys. Good job. Excuse me, parents இருக்கீங்களா? Actually, feedback form போட்டிருக்கேன் நான் chat windowல இருக்கு. So any feedback இருந்ததுன்னா நீங்க feedback வந்துட்டு இதுல formல fill பண்ணுங்க. Okay. Okay, I appreciate you, Jaishnav and Ashwin. ரொம்ப hard work பண்ணிருக்கீங்க இதுக்காக. Very good, actually. Okay, we'll meet you next session. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And participate பண்ண எல்லாத்துக்கும் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப thanks.
Good job, Ashwin and Jason.
Thanks.
Thank you.
மகேந்திரனுக்கு ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றிங்க.
No problem.